Hey everybody, Ed Homewood, Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. I hope everyone's doing well today. Today should be a fun and interesting video. This is a really interesting product. We're going to take a look at the Shanling SM 1.3 streamer DAC, digital hub, can be a preamp. It's a bunch of stuff. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. So sit back, relax, and we'll get going on this review. So what is the Shanling SM 1.3? Well, it is a DAC, a streamer, a digital music server. It's kind of it could be the hub of an all digital system. It's pretty fascinating. Retail price on it's $1,400. This unit is just being imported in the United States now, so all the distribution network isn't fully finalized yet. I'm sure there will be a number of really good resellers that if you're interested in it, you can find. Just give it a month or so, and I think it'll all be on there. So some of the neat things about it, some of the specs are, it is a 5.8-inch touchscreen, and it's actually made by Sharp Electronics, and it's a 1080p full high def touchscreen. Now, as you guys know from past stuff, I'm not a big fan of touchscreens. This one's actually really well executed. I never used it with the touchscreen. I used the app, and I'm going to show you that in a few minutes, but it is really high resolution. It's super easy to use. It's very responsive, very quick, and I think that's cool. Now, it does use what's called a rock chip ARM CPU, and it was specially developed for Shanling, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. The DAC system, my favorite stuff, it is the AKM AK4191EQ and the AK4499EX DAC chip, which I really, really like. That's that hybrid Delta Sigma switch resistor multi-bit DAC chip that just sounds marvelous. It's got some great features. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to put it on the bench and I'm going to show you the back panel. I'm going to show you, give you a tour of the inside because it's impressive as all get out. And then I'm actually going to do a deep dive in the software, and you'll be able to see the screen and my Android tablet while I'm operating. You see how the two work together. It's really seamless. But kind of the basics are, it does have SPDIF input, and you can do 24/192, which is all you can do on SPDIF anyway. It does have a USB input, and that'll do 32-bit 768 and DSD 512. Now here's the cool thing. It does have SPDIF output, so it's got a Toslink and a coax output, and again 24/192, but it has a USB output. It's a USB-A connection that if you want to run out to an external DAC, you can, or cooler, you can run it into a PC and do file transfers between the two devices. That's really neat. It also has a USB 3.0 on the back, and you'll see when we get to the back, you can plug a hard drive in or a memory stick or whatever. It does also have I2S out, so if you want to go into a high-end DAC, you have the I2S available to you. Internal storage is 64 gigabyte. You can add external storage up to 2 terabytes on one of those. I think it's called an MME memory. You know, it's an SSD. It's one of the kind of bigger than a stick of gum. You can put that in. You can also use a USB stick, as I mentioned. So it is NAS, so if you have a network area server, it'll find it because this lives on your network. It is also DLNA enabled, and you have the option of using it UPnP, which I have done on a couple of occasions. It does have, and I'll show you on the inside, it does have a really cool dual linear power supply. We'll talk about that. It does have Bluetooth, and it does all the high-end Bluetooth codecs. It's Bluetooth 5.2, so it does LDAC, aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, AAC, SBC, you know, all the alphabet soup of Bluetooth codecs, really nice. And it can be on your network either wired, there's an RJ45 jack on the back, or wireless, and you can do 2.4 gig, or you can do a 5 gig. So now let's do this. Let me tell you a little bit about the internals and the power supply and some of the philosophy around why they built it the way they did. Well, while I'm talking here, I'm going to pop up some specifications that I didn't cover in the opening about, you know, RCA output, XLR output, frequency response, headphone amp, that kind of stuff. So they'll just be kind of going along while we're there. So the basis of this, almost all these streamers in this category, with the exception of, I think, Stream Magic from Cambridge Audio, all run on Android. Now, Shanling has a very heavily customized version of Android 12 that they've developed just for this device. They also had an ARM chip manufacturer build a 64-bit Cortex CPU specifically for this device. I think that's pretty fascinating. There's a lot going on in here, and when I show you the software and I show you how it works with a tablet and how you can interact with it, it's pretty remarkable. We'll talk about that in a second, when we come back and I give you my summation. So you have access to Spotify, Tidal, Qobuz. There will be, I think, an update soon for Qobuz Connect because that's just starting to roll out. You can do Apple Music. You can do the Apple Classical channel if you want to. You can do AirPlay 2. You can do Amazon Music. And there's a couple of other streaming services listed in there that I'm not familiar with. The big thing for me on this one was the AKM chipset, and I'm going to talk about that when I come back and give you my summary. So let's do this. Let's go put it on the bench. Let me show you the back panel. Let me show you the insides. Let me show you all the software and how it works with the tablet and everything else. And I think you'll find that very interesting. I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you how I tested it and give you my final thoughts. Well, here we are looking at the inside of the Shanling SM 1.3. And I'm going to start on the left-hand side, the power supply side. What you'll notice is there are two potted 31-watt toroidal power supplies underneath these cases. One side is for digital, one side is for analog. It keeps the signal, the power going to those sections super clean, super accurate, super stable. I think that's a really high-end kind of construction. A lot of times you'll just see a single toroid. And remember, a transformer has lots of windings, so they can take a tap off of a different winding and they'll use that to run the analog section and a different tap off the winding to run the digital section. But if there's a resonance created in the power supply, it can bleed into all of them. When you have two totally different power supplies, that's not possible. Now, I want to mention real quick, you'll see little wood blocks all around on the circuit board. And the curious thing is, that's there for damping. Now, you could use a petroleum-based damping material like sorbethane or some sort of rubber or plastic, but wood does a good job of dampening resonances, and it's renewable, it's sustainable, and it's very recyclable. So I think that's a cool application. I've not seen it done like this other than in some very expensive high-end boutique brands. So the wood is really cool. By the way, the gold caps are all Nichicon fine gold capacitors, so good quality components. Now, underneath this heatsink lives the FPGA, the brains of the operation. Remember, FPGA stands for Field Programmable Gate Array, and it's basically a programmable logic block. And the programmers and engineers can get it to do all different kinds of things. Some DAC companies like Cord use an FPGA as their DAC. But in this particular case, we've got the AKM DACs. I'll talk about that in a second. This FPGA, in conjunction with some other circuits here, controls obviously the operations of the unit. It controls all of the signal input and output. So it handles all the jitter, the timing, the latency, the oversampling, those kinds of things. The asynchronous USB, bring that in so the DAC chips can see it. Bring the SPDIF in so the DAC chips can see that. Also runs basically the screen, the app, all of the software in here as well. And it's neat. It's a 64-bit ARM-based Cortex processor, specially developed for Shanling for this particular product. That's some attention to detail that you don't find in a lot of other pieces. So that's really cool. Here's the DAC chips. Anybody who's watched my channel before knows I really, really like the AKM 4191 and 4499 DAC chip set. I think it's just wonderful. You've got one half is the Delta Sigma, the other half is the switched resistor multibit, kind of like a ladder. I think it combines the real high speed and good clean signal of a Delta Sigma with the multi-bit, which gives it that warmth and that depth and that detail, and it's just, oh my goodness, this combination is wonderful. I own, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 DACs that have this DAC chip in it. I mean, I own personally. I really, really like it. Of the chip-based DACs, the AKM 4191 and 4499 are my favorite chip-based DAC, period. I just think they're the best by far. And again, I'm not saying they're as good as a ladder DAC, but oh my goodness, are they amazing. Anyway, that's a look inside the Shanling SM 1.3. I'll tell you what, I am completely impressed by the construction of this unit. It is really well thought out, really well laid out, and good attention to detail. So let's button it up. I'm going to show you how the software works. Actually, first I'm going to show you the back panel, and then I'm going to show you how the software works and the display and all the other stuff. So give me a minute to reconfigure. Well, here we are looking at the back side of the Shanling SM 1.3. So we're going to start on your right. We have an IEC power socket. We have master power switch. We have our 3 antennas for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 2.45 gigs, so forth and so on. We have a USB. The bottom one is a USB input for a hard drive, local files, whatever, FLAC, DSD, whatever. And then it has a USB audio out. So if you wanted to feed a DAC, an external DAC via USB, you can. That is a unique feature. Has a USB input to use this as a DAC. optical and coax input as well. On this side, far left, we've got an RJ45 jack to put it on a wired network if you wish to. We have an I2S output, so this does do galvanic isolation and so forth with that big FPGA. We've got coaxial and optical SPDIF outputs as well. Single-ended output, balanced outputs. I'll get it right one of these days. Anyway, that's looking at the back of the SM 1.3, a very comprehensive, well-designed unit. So now we're going to take a look at the front, the software. That'll be a bit of a deep dive. I will put in a chapter break. So let me reconfigure. Well, here we are. The Shanling is powered down. You'll see on my Android tablet on the other side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and reach around back and power up the Shanling unit, and you'll see its wake up sequence. You can see the knob is flashing red until it settles in and gets going. And then I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit here so maybe you can see that screen a little better. So I apologize if it's a little jiggly, but I want you guys to get a good look at that screen. So I'm going to touch the power knob, wake it up, and you'll see it go through its boot cycle. Let me get that kind of more square for you. Anyway, on the Android tablet, you're not seeing anything yet because I have to wait for this to boot up. Nice graphics, very interesting, really nice, and of course the Shanling logo. And it'll sit for a second, and what you can't see is the knob is actually glowing orange as it's going through its boot up cycle. And I don't want to start the software yet because it's not going to find anything to connect to. So let's get it on the network, and that's what the streamer's doing right now. Now the knob is turned blue, which is a standard operating mode. Now you can see the screen, and that's the default screen. So I'm going to go ahead on my tablet now, start the software called EDIC Controller. Now I'm going to have to flip the tablet because it starts in portrait mode, but I can mirror what's on the screen in landscape mode. And as you can see in portrait mode, everything's there, but you'll notice down on the bottom, it says on the left side, wireless projection. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and now I'm going to rotate the screen back to a landscape mode, and you'll see the two screens are in sync. Now, on the far right-hand side, we'll start there. Up at the top, obviously local time and signal strength to the network. Then the Shanling logo, that shows when you're processing stuff. That's kind of a little, like you're spinning hourglass in a computer. You have a crooked arrow, which is your return. The circle, which is return to main menu. The four little boxes at the bottom of the right-hand screen, that is brings you into your input, output, system settings. We'll get to there in a minute. Now, moving from right to left, streaming services on top, that's your Tidal, Qobuz, Amazon, Apple, whatever. NAS is your network area server. Playlists would be playlists you've built from stored files or hard drive files local to the Shanling, not playlists from Tidal, Qobuz, or Amazon Music or Apple Music. Then moving over, we've got recently played, that's stuff in the queue. Again, that would be local files. Above that, music library. Below that, favorites. Now the favorites are, again, songs or tracks you've favorited in the local storage, in that local music files. All the way to the far left, you've got album art, if there was any album art. Obviously a scrolling title for the name of the song. This is just the default. Below that, you'll see a line, that's your timeline. Below that, you'll have your play pause control. So I'm going to go ahead over and I'm going to touch the streaming services icon, and that brings up our streaming services. And again, you see Apple Music, Classical's another streaming service, Amazon Music, Spotify, KKBox and Presto Music I'm not familiar with, and you'll see Qobuz underneath there. And then below that you'll see Tidal, and below that you'll see what's called NetDisc, WebDAV. Again, that's not something I'm familiar with. I use this with Tidal and Qobuz. So I'm going to go ahead and start the Tidal app. And that's basically just like I would see Tidal on my Android device. Across the top, you'll see new, top, Tidal rising, genres, my collection, and a search, right? And then I can go through new playlists. This is all the stuff Tidal wants to serve you. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my collection, and it shows playlist, albums, artists, log out, so forth. We're going to go ahead and touch playlists, and it brings up all the playlists I have stored in Tidal. So we're going to go down here. Let's pick one. Let's use Old Guy Hi-Fi Test Tracks Volume 1. I touch that. And it shows me all of the tracks in there with the album art and the artist name. So let's say I go ahead and touch Sad Lisa by Cat Stevens. There's our beautiful album artwork. And now we're going to go start at the top upper left corner. You'll see a little speaker icon with waves coming off of it. That means it's active and playing. The little squiggly thing is actually a single-ended cable. So we're connected via single-ended. I'm not doing balanced output. And we're also at a line line out, so a fixed volume. This can be a preamp if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and pause that song. This can be a preamp if you wanted to. So below that, you'll see the title logo. Then moving across to the right, this is track 1 of 23. I have title set for master resolution. I do have EQ function, so if I touch EQ, you won't see anything right away because I don't have the EQ turned on. Right under where it says 211, I'm going to slide that over, and that turns on my EQ, and there's the EQ functions if I want it. I also have, under Customize 1, drop down that I can scroll through, and it's got some preset ones, or I can make my own and have 3 different customized EQ settings if I wish to. I'm going to go ahead and turn the EQ off because I don't use it, honestly. And we're going to go back to the main screen. And again, next to EQ, you'll see what looks like a windshield with a wiper on it. Well, those are our meters. And that's because the song's paused, there's not any action on the meters. But you have several different meter styles if you want, which I think is kind of fun, right? So we go back out. Then we also have here, brings us up to some display settings. So if I want to do spectrum, if I want to open that up, we go back to the actual display itself. Let's go back, and we're going to hit that track. And then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to hit the meters, and you'll see, actually, sorry, let me go back. You'll see an overlay of a spectrum analyzer along the bottom. If you want that, you can have it. So that, again, is in those lines, the settings, right? So I'm going to go back to spectrum. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off because I don't really use it. But you'll see USB mode. What do we want to do? We can do DSD over DOP. We can do native on USB. Stop playback. If we don't get a signal, you want it to turn off after so many minutes. Memory playback, again, stuff from your local hard drive. Auto enter playback, if you want, you can have it set up that when the unit boots up, it goes to a specific song. So we're going to go back out. I'm going to hit the circle icon on the far right-hand side. That brings us back to our main display. If I touch the album artwork, that brings us back to the larger album artwork display. So that's everything on screen. You'll see Sad Lisa title track, Cat Stevens artist, album name. It just went ahead and switched to another album. This is showing that it is an MP3 file. It really isn't. High res, 44 2-channel, 32-bit. Again, this is being upsampled, the upper left-hand corner to 96 kilohertz. I'm going to go ahead and skip another track, and we'll get a different look at something. There's Winter Flowers by Martha Tilson. So you can see there. Now, you'll see underneath where it says 44.1 2-channel, 32-bit, it says no lyrics. If the service provided lyrics, and I believe Spotify does, you would have lyrics scrolling there. Below that is obviously a timeline of the album and all your play pause stuff, and the heart if you want to make it a favorite, local favorite. So that's all of the album stuff and the music playing. You'll notice too the Shanling logo in the upper right hand corner is spinning around. Now let's go to the 4 squares at the bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to go to input output here real quick. Let's go back to that screen. And why am I having fun with this? Let's do this. Of course, it never fails. It always happens when you're in the middle of a demonstration. So again, there's our input-output settings. I apologize for that, guys. Right now, we're using built-in player on input ports. We have USB DAC, using this as a DAC, a coax input, an optical input, or I can do Bluetooth. Now, below our output, I can set it up to be a preamp where it has volume control. And I can do volume from the knob on the unit, or I can do volume from the actual remote control itself. Then I have headphone output. If I touch that, it shuts off all of the normal output and only outputs to the headphone jack, 1/4-inch headphone jack on the front. And then I can have it be USB output, which means at this point the Shanling becomes a server only, and it's outputting its digital signal via USB to go into an external DAC. Now, the outputs for SPDIF, Toslink, and coax are live all the time, but for USB, you have to let it know that's what you want to do. So we'll come back here to the album artwork stuff. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. Again, the 4 squares in the lower right-hand corner, and we're going to go to system settings. And this is where setup stuff is, your network, your Wi-Fi, your wired LAN, playback controls, phone control. How do you want to use it? If you want to just scan the QR code, it will load the app on your device if you need it to. Wireless projection details, that is what I'm doing. It's called wireless projection, where I'm mirroring the device's screen on my tablet, and I can choose the resolution. And of course, I want highest resolution possible. And then Samba service, and I'm not exactly sure what Samba is. I think it is a networking service that you can use to run a NAS server, but it's not something I'm familiar with. I apologize for that. Then we go to audio, and that is gain setting for headphone. You'll see it's supported only in headphone mode. So you can have low, medium, and high gain. And you saw in the original where I put the specs up what the outputs were. Digital filters, you have some digital filters you can choose. And I happen to run the slow roll-off filter. I don't really care. I don't hear a whole lot of difference between them. But that's what I run. Then you have here channel balance. So if you're using this as a preamp, you can also use it to channel balance left and right. You can set your I2S output mode. That is the pin configuration on the HDMI connector on the back of the unit. I use it in mode 1. I've connected a bunch of different DACs that accept an I2S input to it, and I've never had a connection problem. So I think mode 1 is what is generally accepted as the right I2S, which is basically the PS audio pin configuration. Thanks to them for kind of wanting to standardize, and everybody also has standardized on that for the most part. There are other options there because, and you can see the pin configurations if you need to look at them, depending on what the device is and whether or not they go with, there's actually, if you notice, there's 10 different pin configurations that this device can accommodate. Again, I've used the mode 1 and never had an issue. Oversampling. So you can have it bypass. You can have everything in the device upsampled to DSD 512 all the way up. You can run PCM up to 768. I run at 96. I just did it for giggles. I don't think oversampling beyond that makes any difference. Most of the time I have it on bypass because I have high-res files, and I'll just let the device run it natively. So so back from that, and then phase inversion, you can invert phase if you think you have tracks that are out of phase. Under general is your language setting, your input setting. So input method is Android keyboard, or you can choose a default Japanese keyboard style or a default Pinyin keyboard style for the Chinese. Date and time, how you want to display that. USB OTG port, what do you want to do? Do you want to use it for external storage? You want to use a hard drive with local files or a USB stick with local files, or do you want to do a PC file transfer? You can connect this device via USB to your PC and transfer files from the hard drive internally directly to the PC if you wish to. Then the function custom button, there is on the remote control a button that is programmable, and you can set it up to do back, return to main menu, input, output, favorites, whatever you want. There's a number of different settings there that you can customize. So quick access. Main menu preferences, how do you want it to look? There's really not a lot of difference. If I switch to setting 2, instead of having my local storage, and I'll show you, well, let's go back to it real quick. I hit the circle on the right-hand side. You'll notice now it says favorites instead of local storage in the large icon in the center of the screen. So if I go back again, and I go to system settings, and I go to general, and I go to main menu preference, and I go back to setting 1, and we go back to the main menu, you see down it says music library, rather than favorites as being the center icon. So that's just an option you have for how it displays things. So that's general. That covers everything there. On display, obviously display brightness. Ambient light adjustment is how do you want the little ring around the volume knob, control knob to look? You want to, how bright you want it, what color do you want it, those kinds of things. You can have it off if you want to too. Screensaver time, how long you want before the screensaver goes on. And you have 2 different screensaver, no, 3 different actually. You can have a screen off, it just goes blank. You can have the classic mode, which is a clock and a nice little graphic of a mountain. Or you can have an analog clock with, second hand, sweep hands, all that kind of stuff. I like the bigger one. I can read it easily or from my easy chair. Storage is, again, local storage. So if I had an MME drive in it, it would show that. If I had a hard drive connected to it, it might show that. I have not done that, so I don't know. But anyway, you can free up space. You have control over your internal storage. Now, right now, it is basically showing RAM memory. And that's what the ARM processor uses to run the device, run Android, just like an ARM processor in your tablet. So it does all of that stuff as well. It also shows too, if you have stuff stored at Qobuz, remember with Qobuz you can buy files and you could store them on this device if you wanted to. Then we go to the About button, and it shows the model. you can check for firmware update. It shows you the firmware update currently, shows its IP address, shows its serial number. On the right-hand side shows the DAC chipset, it shows the XMOS processor, it shows that it uses 4 gig of memory for the DAC, and then it shows the total memory for the system. So that's all of the networking, all of the behind-the-scenes look at the Shanling software. It is a piece of cake to use. It's really powerful. You get used to it really quick. Now, a lot of people know I love the StreamMagic software from Cambridge Audio, and I still think StreamMagic is the easiest to use, and I like StreamMagic a lot. But I got to tell you, for an all-in-one streamer, DAC, everything, at its price point, I'm not sure anything touches the Shanling. I'm not sure Eversolo's got anything. Eversolo, you got to buy an external, or you got to buy an upgraded power supply. This already has that dual power supply. We saw it when we opened it up. This is a really well-engineered, really well-thought-out unit, and again, the software is really nice. So let me turn all this stuff off. We're going to go back in the studio. I didn't do any music. You can use a playlist. You guys get the idea. It sounds wonderful because of the DAC chip. I'll tell you how I tested it. I'll give you a summary of my thoughts, and we'll get the heck out of here. Well, as you can see from looking inside and looking at the software on this piece, it is remarkable. It is excellent. All right, so everybody's going to ask, I think everybody knows I'm a big fan of Cambridge StreamMagic. I'm a big fan of the app. I'm a big fan of the streaming portion of it. I'm a big fan of their hardware with one slight exception. I'm not a big fan of Sabre DAC chips, and that's what Cambridge Audio uses. On the EXN100, which is their top of the line streamer, it actually sounds really good. And if you like detail, that's a great piece for that. As far as the streaming software in Cambridge, it's a bit limited in your functionality, although they've added EQs and room correction and things like that, or room equalization is really what it is. But it's still a very robust, very simple, very easy to use software application. And I think I use my MXN10 primarily as a digital transport. So I go UPnP, I go wirelessly to it, and then I connect it to an external DAC that I prefer the sound of. So StreamMagic is still, I think, absolutely amazing and absolutely wonderful, but this does get, as a device, this I think sounds better than the Cambridge Audio pieces, just as a device, because of the AKM DAC chip. That's my favorite, chip-based DAC, period. As far as the software, this is very robust. It's actually pretty easy to use. You have to have a little bit of nerd in you to want to dig into it a little deeper. I think just from, for like my wife, this StreamMagic is absolutely perfect. For someone who doesn't stream a lot and really isn't interested in all of the nuts and bolts part of it, StreamMagic's perfect. You can set this up to be that same way, and it's not that hard to do. On the tablet, you can run it landscape as you see it here, or portrait if you want to, and it's pretty easy, and you have access to title and all the other stuff. You saw all that. So from a ease of use standpoint, this isn't quite as easy as StreamMagic. It is much more customizable than StreamMagic, just because you can dig into the nuts and bolts and stuff like that, and that's great if you're interested in that. I kind of like doing that. I never use the EQ in this. I never use the EQ in StreamMagic either, but it's there if you need it. It also, too, has some really neat features. One of them, and I can go to it real quick, and I don't know if I showed it to you before, is the VU meters. So you can have VU meters, and I can have different styles of VU meters. So it's kind of got a nice, very interactive sort of operation, and the software again is real easy to use. I've not tried it on an Apple device, but on Android, not a problem at all. So I think there are a couple of things going on here. I think the DAC chip setup is really well implemented. I think the fact that they're using a custom FPGA, I think that is really interesting, because it gives them the ability to program that to do a lot of different things. Now, it works in conjunction with an XMOS X316 chip. Now, the XMOS chip handles, remember, XMOS chips typically handle the USB input, the asynchronous USB. It'll, obviously look at the packets. If it needs a new packet sent, it'll request that from the sending device and so forth, and it processes that, and it can do the initial upsampling and dealing with the asynchronous USB, jitter reduction, things like that. There are also oscillator clocks in there. You couldn't see them. They were under the board. That's why I didn't point them out. But then you have the FPGA to help do the additional noise shaping and obviously give you the functions like like the ability to do EQs and the ability to do tailor the sound and add digital filters and to handle DSD and to handle the output of SPDIF, the output of I2S, all of those things. And then you've got that ARM processor just kind of running all of the software, the Android software in the background. It's a really powerful, really well thought out device. So the way I tested it is I've had it since Exponent, so I've probably had it about 6 weeks or so. And I've run it with everything. I ran it in my normal system, my normal reference system, which consists of the Advanced Paris A12. You guys are sick of hearing me say that. I did run it with the Cambridge Audio EXA100. I did run it with the Vincent SV500MK that I had in and reviewed recently. I've also been running it a lot with the Rogue RP5 preamp, running into a variety of different Class D amps. I've got 3 different mono GAN amps in the Orchard Audio, the Live GAN M, and I've got the Argent Pure monoblock, GAN monoblocks. I also have from Pearl Acoustics, I have their new, it's actually a pre-production piece, the 7040 Class D stereo amplifier. This thing was a great device to use with all of them. It sounded absolutely wonderful. This is a really, really good device. Is it as good as Arnavana? I don't know, but it is damn near bit perfect. It is damn near the same as Arnavana, and this would be, unfortunately I got to send it back to him. I would consider replacing everything I do streaming wise with just this device, because it has so much flexibility. It has so much, I have access to all kinds of different goes intos and goes outas, and I can configure it in a variety of different ways. It's easy to control from the tablet. You can also use the supplied remote control if you want to. You've just got so much flexibility with it. And then that AKM chipset sounds absolutely marvelous. The stream sounds absolutely marvelous. I did take the I2S out of this and I ran it into the Live Micro DAC, and that sounded wonderful. I think this gives a really, really good stream. Very similar, the same or just incrementally now. The same or incrementally better than Stream Magic from a sonic standpoint. They're so close it's hard to tell. I think this is better overall. I think this gets very close to Artavana, and that's saying a lot because Artavana is amazing. This is really amazing. If I had to get rid of Artavana, I could put this in the system and live with it for the rest of my life. It is that good. It is really, really good. I love the fact that they do the dual power supplies, one for analog, one for digital. I love the AKM chipset. I love the implementation of the board. I even love the little wood damping pieces they put in there. I think that's so interesting because it's very renewable and a sustainable resource. I just think overall, this has caught my fancy, no question. I'm a bit smitten with it, no question. I like the software. I like its performance. I just like everything about it. I like its build quality. I like its ease of use. I love the goes in as it goes out as. Yeah, this could be an end game streamer, and here's the reason why. Even if you don't want the DAC, or eventually you want to do something different than the DAC, you've got all the goes intos and goes outas to do that. I think as a standalone all by itself, the DAC internally, really good, really good. An excellent implementation of that AKM chipset. Probably one of the best I've heard. And when you put it in combination with the streamer, the digital hub, all of the other things that you can do, access your NAS, do DLNA, you can do, local stored files, all of those other things, I think it's really cool. Now, one of the other things I did do, which was really good, was I did pair it up with the Shanling ET3 CD transport, and I ran the SPDIF out of this into this, and it was really good. It sounded great, and it was just a nice combination. The two kind of share a similar look, so that was really good. I also have, and I don't have it at hand, is the little Shanling Tube portable CD player. I did run it into this, just the digital out of it, but the full review of that's coming, and I'll discuss that more when I do the review of that particular product. So anyway, the Shanling SM 1.3 DAC streamer all-in-one box. Man, I couldn't give it a higher recommendation. I am hoping to do some review of some Eversolo products, although after what I've said about them, they may not ever send me one. I think this is by far and away the best all-in-one complete DAC streamer, network server, digital, front end of a system. Absolutely. It just gives you so much flexibility. That's the Shanling SM 1.3. This is a really, really cool device. Oh man. Anyway, Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you'd be willing to give me a like and your subscription. I would appreciate that a great deal. So I'd like to thank my members and my subscribers and my viewers. There will be a link to Shanling's webpage. I have no affiliation with it, but if you want more information or you want to check on availability, there may be some information there. But as I said, this is just coming into North America now. There's going to be more distribution available. So just keep an eye open with your favorite online reseller. Anyway, there will be also in the pinned comment in the video description will be a channel membership link if you're interested in joining the channel. In the video description, there will be some affiliate links for other products. I didn't do any music on this one because it's a streaming thing. So, you know, to talk about music and sound, it's all going to depend on the stream, and you can't hear it the way I heard it. So there was kind of no point in that. But there is a link to the community post playlist in the video description. Check that out. There's some amazing music there for sure. So anyway, comment, let me know. What do you think about streamers? I think this is amazing. I think, you know, with an Eversolo in and around the same price, I think you have to pay extra for a fancy power supply. This one's got it already built in, so you're kind of one and done. And by the way, I didn't mention it, but upgrades for the app and upgrades for the software and the firmware inside, very easy to do. You can do it right from the device, or you can do it if you want to, download it and put it on a stick and do it that way. You can. Anyway, I needed to mention that. So comment, let me know your thoughts on it. That's everything I need to say and want to say about the Shanling SM 1.3. I wish I could keep the darn thing. Man, it's good. Anyway, please like, please subscribe, please comment. You follow me on Instagram. I'll put something on Instagram up about this. That's everything. My name's Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and it's now, as you know what I'm going to say, it is your duty to yourself to put on some really beautiful music, sit back, relax, and just chill out and enjoy your day. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.